is 9:05 a.m. out on the East Coast. I know it's 6 a.m. out on the West Coast. So for those of you who are joining us out on the West Coast, I appreciate you guys waking up early to do this. When I was a real active real estate agent and real estate broker, I remember there was a mentor of mine. His name was Christian, and he still does it to this day. But he would hold 4:45 a.m. Trainings. He would get people up at 4:45. He would call it the 4:45 Club, and people would get up till about we'd be listening to him till about 5:30, and he still does it to this day, and he has a crazy audience that participates in that, so for those of you out on the West Coast who are up at 6 a.m. and you're listening to this, thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about how to sell your own deals. Okay, this is a very important part of the business, because just getting the deal, that's half the battle. Okay, and the challenge with a lot of people is that when we get those deals, the very first thing that you need to do is you're going to need to price your deal right. And I'm going to add an asterisk to this, because it's not only about just pricing the deal right. I think it's easy for people to just think that, like, oh, a deal doesn't sell just because it's overpriced, or oh, something's not selling just because you locked it in too high. That's the easy explanation. The harder explanation is understanding what the right exit strategy was, and did you approach it from the right exit strategy? Because we can make all cash offers all day long on overpriced properties, and that's not going to get us anywhere. So aside from the fact that you want to make sure that you price the deal right so that it's attractive to investors, it's also making sure that you identify what the best exit strategy is. And I say this all the time, but all cash offers all the time are not going to work, and they're just one tool for what we do. So if you're looking at a property, and we covered this I think last week, and it's in pretty good condition and it's in livable condition, it might even be in rentable condition, but it's just dated and old, you making an all cash offer to those sellers is probably going to get a rejection. You're probably going to get rejected, right? Because if you're making an all cash offer, you're typically making an offer anywhere between 50 to 70 cents on the dollar, and the house is still livable. There are plenty of people that would live in that house and fix that house up as as their family grew. So number one, pricing your deal right is very important, but additionally, it's also important that you find out what the exit strategy is going to be. So I've said this before. If a property was purchased between 2018 to 2022, maybe 23, or if it was refinanced, I need to make sure that I add that caveat to it too, because there are people that did refinance between those years and they pulled out a bunch of equity. And there are times where I don't remind people that it's not only did they buy between 2018 and 2020 and 2022, but did they refinance? Did they pull money out? Did they take out a home equity line? Did they exhaust their equity in their property during those years? Because if they did, then those are still good subject to candidates. And I've said this before, and it bears repeating, that just because we know how to do subject twos, and just because we know how to structure a subject to, and just because we are a possible solution for them, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be receptive to it either. This is important, right? Not everyone's going to be receptive to that possibility. So we've got all cash offers, we've got subject to offers, we've got the novations as a possible solutions, and that is where we work with the seller as a team, and we basically say to the seller, listen, we guarantee you a minimum price. That's going to be your minimum price, and anything beyond that is going to be our profit. You know, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you know that when we buy properties, we are buying them for profit. We're investors. We're not hiding around that. We're not skirting around that. You know that is what we are trying to do. So we want to make a profit. So as long as you get your price, I don't think you're that concerned about whether I find my buyer tonight or if I find my buyer 3 months from now. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Okay, great. So why don't you do this? Why don't you give us the opportunity to start looking for our buyer now? Okay, let's look. I'd like to look for them now, and by doing that, I need to take it to the open market. And if you can give me reasonable access, I'd like to start showing it to the buyers that I want to sell the property to as well. Okay, again, that's innovation. That's a possible solution. Does it mean that everyone's going to be receptive to it? Not everyone. Some people will, some people won't. We have situations where I'll look at a deal initially and I'll say, okay, this looks like it's more suited for innovation just based on what I'm hearing from the seller, just based on what I'm seeing on Zillow. And then Bo and I were looking at a specific property in Atlanta that I thought, and Bo, we're talking about Andres, that I thought would be innovation based on the pictures that I saw on Zillow. And that can be very, very deceiving because once we went into the property and once Bo went into the property, we realized that there was a lot more damage. It wasn't just surface level stuff that that would be easily fixed. We've got water damage, we've got possible mold, then we need mold remediation. You've got exposed walls, you've got drywall damage, you've got moisture damage, which means there's also a possible plumbing issue, which also means that there's potentially a roof issue. It opened up Pandora's box. And so what we originally thought was going to be a novation, because we thought, well, based on the photos that we're seeing on Zillow, it looks like this is kind of an easy fix. It turned out it wasn't going to be that. Okay, so possible solutions. All cash offer, possible solutions. Subject to, possible solutions. Novations, possible solutions, right? These are all possible solutions. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to update this in our school community, but I recently, and I know you guys are seeing my screen, so forgive me. I recently updated the creative sheet calculator that I use. So let me show you what it looks like now, because for those of you who are a part of the team, this is something I think you're going to appreciate and you'll use. Just bear with me. Where is it? Okay. So this is what I call our all creative deals calculator. Okay. So now we have every possible scenario for all the types of creative deals that you might do. This includes subject to. This includes subject to with more than one loan. This includes just straight seller finance. This includes subject to if it's on the MLS with an agent, subject to if it's on the MLS with an agent and multiple loans, and then seller finance if it's on the MLS. So we've got all these tabs, and you might be able to see it, you might not be able to see it, but I'm going to update this and give everybody access to this one in our school community. So you can click it. Direct to seller, DTS stands for direct to seller. It looks like Dancing with the Stars, but it's not. DTS seller finance, DTS sub 2, DTS sub 2 plus multiple loans, DTS sub 2 hybrid. I forgot about that one. So what do we do if we have a situation where you have a seller, you want to offer them subject to, but then they also have a bunch of equity? Well, how are you going to pay that? How are you going to structure the equity on the back end? So there's ways to do that here as well with the calculator. We've got the MLS seller finance, we've got the MLS subject to, we've got the MLS subject to plus loans, the MLS subject to hybrid. Okay, so everybody who's in our profit sharing community, you automatically have access to this. Okay, so for those of you that have an interest in learning more about this, shoot me a direct message, shoot me a message, and we'll talk about how you can get access to it too. But for all of you profit sharing members, these calculators are great. Okay, so I was working on them over the weekend to revise them so that the numbers make sense when we're submitting those offers to our sellers. So going back to what we said, number one, the easiest way to sell your deal is to price it right and structure the exit strategy correctly so that it is appropriate, so that you can make the deal more attractive to your seller. The more attractive you make the deal, the more likely you're going to get an offer accepted. And again, this isn't about lose-win. This isn't about win-lose. This is about win-win. If everybody can walk away from the negotiating table feeling like they all gave up a little bit, we all gave up a little bit, but we all walked away happy, you're going to be more successful in this business, okay? And the best way to become more successful in this business by creating these win-win scenarios is by having multiple tools in your tool belt and by knowing which exit strategy you can offer, because some of these exit strategies are going to be higher than the all-cash offer that most people are familiar with, and that's the one that they use all the time, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, let's go to the next one. Hey, Harsh, Good morning. Good to see you. I'm looking at the comments, guys. Sorry. As they come in, let me see what we got cooking. Okay. All right. Next thing. You used to be able to sign up for an Investor Lift account for free. You can't do that anymore. So the other option when you want to get your deal sold is you're going to need exposure. I'm not going to talk about Investor Lift right now. I'll talk about it a little bit later on. So let's move on to the next slide, because we do use Investor Lift, but we'll talk about it. Okay, the next way to get your deal sold, okay, is you can use batch leads, or over the weekend. One of the things that we talked about was we were talking about prime tracers. Okay, now prime tracers, one of the reasons that I've become a fan of theirs is because they give you access to data. Okay, free data. So you can essentially go in there and you can plug in an address and you can pull the public data and you can pull the public records and you can see the mortgages on there and you can see everything that you can see on all the other platforms for free. All right, so all the stuff that you can see on PropStream, all the stuff that you can see on Batch, it's all great information, but there's still a paywall, meaning you still have to pay to access that information. And so here, you don't have to pay for that information. You can pull lists in bundles of 10,000 names and addresses for free. Okay, they give you access to the data for free, right? What they don't give you access to is to the skipped trace data. Okay, so if you want to use their skip tracing, which by the way is a dynamic data, in other words, it's real time. It's skip traced information that as they update and change it, it's updated and changed in real time. Don't ask me about the science. I don't know how they do it. That's above my pay grade. But the bottom line is they have it. And so for those of you that are interested, and if you ever want to pull a list, you can do that with prime tracers. Let's say you don't even use the skip tracing. You just want it for the data. You can go and you can essentially reverse engineer this, okay? So one of the things that you can do if you're looking for buyers for your deals is you can hop onto Zillow. You look at the properties that were recently sold within a year of each other. So if somebody bought it, in let's say January of 2025, and then they have it up for sale, or it sold again in July of 2025, clearly that's a flip. We know it's a flip. That's an investor that purchased it, bought it, fixed it, and sold it. And so if your deal qualifies as a fix and flip opportunity, a all cash buyer investor opportunity, then what you'll do is you'll hop onto Zillow and you'll browse all of the sellers that have sold their properties within 6 to 12 months of buying it. Okay, those are the flippers. Then what you can do is you can hop onto a site like Prime Tracers. You can reverse search it, find out who the owner is. Typically, it's probably going to be an LLC. Sometimes it's an individual owner. You at least have access to that data. Now, if you want, you can then skip trace it. And if you skip trace it, they have great skip trace rates as well. It starts at like 7 cents a skip trace. They give you the phone number and they give you the email, and you can purchase those in packages or packets as well. And then you do the skip trace, okay? But all I'm saying is, for those of you that are saying, okay, Paul, look, I just need the data. I don't want to invest in anything right now. Fine, then just go in there, type in the address, and then you found the LLC that just did a recent flip. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can contact the agent who is representing the flipper once they put the property on the market. Now, don't get that confused with the agent that represented the buyer. You're not looking for the buyer's agent on a flip. You're looking for the listing agent, because the listing agent is the one that represented the investor on their resale after the property has been fixed and sold. So what you can do is contact the agent. Hey, John or Jane, agent, my name is Paul. Listen, I'm contacting you because I saw that you represented John or Jane Doe, who sold the property at 1234 Mockingbird Lane. It looks like they did an excellent job on the flip, and you did an excellent job as the listing agent. I have another opportunity that I think they might be interested in that's in very similar condition to the one that they bought, and I think we got it at a pretty good price. I'd like to present it to them. Now, you can get the agent involved, understanding that if you get the agent involved, you're going to probably be paying some type of a commission or some type of a referral fee. Now, some agents won't ask for anything. Some agents don't mind you bringing the opportunity to the investor, because then their thought process is that if you bring me the property or the opportunity and I take it to the investor, well, I still look like a rock star because I was able to find them an off-market opportunity, even though it what came from you as the referral or as the source. They bring it to the investor. Investor buys it, flips it, fixes it, and then uses the listing agent, and the listing agent makes the money on the backside. So some agents are comfortable with that. Some agents are going to tell you, no, if I'm going to bring you the buyer and we're going to sell the property to them, I'm expecting some type of compensation. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe it necessarily should be a full 2 or 3%, but hey, it's negotiable. Everything is negotiable, so you can do what you feel is comfortable. But don't be afraid to say something like, hey, John or Jane, listen, I know that if I bring you this opportunity, it's going to make you look like a rock star to your investor, right? Because you're bringing them off-market opportunities, which makes you more valuable, which means they're more likely to use you every time they get this property as and they want to list it. And so, what if we do it for a flat fee of like $500 or $1,500, $2,000, whatever you feel comfortable? Okay. The agent may scoff at it. The agent may accept it. You don't know until you negotiate, right? So you just wait and see what they say. But yes, it does. The agent typically will get the relist. Now, in some cases, the flipper is actually a real estate agent themselves. And so there is a chance that while the listing agent may bring the opportunity to the flipper may decide that they're just going to want to list the property themselves and not pay a real estate agent. That's always a possibility, especially if margins are tight. And that's another conversation that we'll have for another training, but there are times where investors will say, hey, listen, the margins are a little tight on this one. I can't hire a real estate agent. I'm just going to put it on the market myself as a for sale by owner or as an agent since I'm licensed anyway. Okay, that's always a possibility, which then reinforces what I said earlier, why the agent would ask for some type of compensation, right? It's because there's a chance they may not get the listing. All right, just FYI. So you can use batch leads, you can use prime tracers, get the data, or you can use them for your skip tracing. Again, the skip tracing service is very, very good. Anybody that participated in our training over the weekend that we held, we did a 5-hour deal domination boot camp, and I thought it went really, really well. Got 250 free credits to test out on this. Okay, so if you'd like to test out their service, again, shoot me a message, shoot me a DM, send me something, and I'll get you the link so that you can do it as well. You can get yourself signed up. All right. So once you've downloaded those buyers, now what if it's a buy and hold investor, Paul? So earlier we talked about the subject to deals. Earlier we talked about the subject to hybrid deals. All those different exit strategies. What then? What do we do then? What kind of buyers are going to buy those? Well, now you're not going to be looking for the all cash investors. Now you're going to be looking for the buy and hold investors. Okay. So you can use the exact same strategy. You can basically go now. You're going to start looking for the people that we're looking for that bought duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes. Those are the type of real estate investors that would be interested in those buy and holds. The other option is if they buy it subject to. A lot of states, a lot of cities, a lot of counties have really good Section 8 programs for tenants. So what you can do is you can go back in and and Bo taught us this over the weekend. Thank you for that tip, Bo. You can hop into Zillow, and the same way we've used keywords to find properties that would qualify as good investment opportunities for our end buyers, right? Using our Zillow Zapper. The same way that we created those filters, you can just go in there now, add a keyword Section 8 in the comments, and then what will happen is all the properties that have the phrase Section 8 in the public remarks will then show up, and then you can go back and you can say, okay, this was a Section 8 property, it sold, and so now you can find out who the buyer's agent. Now it's reversed. Now we're trying to find out who the buyer was for this Section 8 property. So now what you'll do is you'll call the buyer's agent. Originally on the flip, we were looking for the listing agent because the listing agent was representing the seller, which was the one that flipped, and sold the property. In this case now, if you're going to use a filter in Zillow that says Section 8 in keywords, and I can show you. Let's do that real fast. Let me show it to you in real time, because it's one thing for me to just verbally do it. It's another thing for me to show you. So if I come in here, and I'll just say Cleveland, Ohio, okay? Is my keyboard not working? Cleveland, Ohio, homes. What you're going to do is you're going to come in here, and you're going to come down to, you don't want accepting or pending, but you're going to type in where it says keywords. Now type in Section 8. Now you've got all these properties that either qualify for Section 8 or have a Section 8 tenant, right? And we're going to reverse it because we want sold. Let's see the ones that have sold. And then we want the ones that have sold in the last, let's say, year. So in the last year, we've got 309 different opportunities here where investors have bought properties that have the keyword Section 8 somewhere in the public remarks in the phrases. Okay, we've got one right here. So in this particular case, what you're going to do is you're going to contact the buyer's agent, right, Camellia, and you're going to say, hi, I have a property that I think your investor would be interested in. And then you propose it to them that way. The other thing that you could do is you can just you do it yourself. Get the property address, copy and paste it, go into Prime Tracers, type in the address, boom, and start searching. They'll give you the data for it. Okay, it'll show you the owner. It'll show you everything that you can find on any other platform for free. Just not the phone number and the email address. That is the only thing that you have to pay for and use credits for, okay? So it'll give you the data. So going back to what I was saying, if you've got the fix and flips, now you can do the same thing. You can find them yourself, or you can contact the agent. If you have a sub 2 or a seller finance deal, you can look for the investors that are buying properties in there as rentals, right? And you can look for the key phrase, Section 8, somewhere in the public remarks. You find them, you contact the sellers, and then you contact the agents. Okay? I'm going to pause just for 1 sec just to check comments and see what we've got. Nothing right now. Okay, great. All right. I'm not sure what happened to the Instagram audience, so I'm trying to find them. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Batch, nope. Okay, Zillow for all the properties are recently flipped and sold. Facebook groups. Okay, this is important too. So if you are going to be promoting your property within Facebook groups, one of the things that I see a lot of new people do is they will go and they will, number one, there's no real sales sheet. So let me, I want to show you an example of what a sales sheet might look like, okay? Because we use them, and I think you want to see this. So I'm going to show you this one. This is an example of a sales sheet that Will Willoughby and I did when we just sold a deal over in Salem, New Jersey. Okay, so if you go in here, you will see, number one, you need a title, right? You got to have some type of a title. Now, for those of you that have challenges with this, just use AI. Just use AI to help you with this, okay? Then you're going to need to know what the asking price is. Okay, so what's your asking price? And by the way, if anybody wants a copy of this template of our sales sheet, let me know. This is the one that we use. You can have access to this. You go in there, and you should have some type of a sales sheet for your property. Okay, something. You need something so that it looks professional, so that it's presented in a way that's easily understood, easily digestible, and it documents or at least supports what it is that you are saying about the property. Okay, so it's important that you do this. So you need to have a sales sheet. What's your asking price? Well, your asking price is obviously going to be more than what you got it for under contract. Okay, this is important. So if you got the property under contract for $75,000, well then what's your fee going to be? Okay, now I have a rule of thumb that it's going to be a little challenging to get your fee anything over than 10% more than what the asking price is. Okay, so if you've got it for 70, it's going to be really difficult for you to be able, I mean, unless you've negotiated it at a ridiculously low price, but it's going to be difficult for you to get more than 10%. I believe maybe you can do 15%. I know that we all have minimum standards and a minimum amount that we would like to see and we would like to earn as real estate investors when we're wholesaling these strategies, but 10% is usually a pretty good threshold. You know, again, when you're going after the lower lower tiered properties and you're selling a $40,000 property, it's going to be hard for you to expect to make a $20,000 to $25,000 fee off of a $40,000 property, especially, you know, from an investor who's buying it for that low. So my recommendation is 10% is a pretty good threshold. You can probably go a little higher at 15%, but just keep that in mind, okay? So what's your asking price? You put it there. What's the ARV? Now, your ARV needs to be supported by comps, okay, and we're going to talk about that. So you need to put what your ARV is and what is your repairs. In this market, in this climate, my recommendation, my suggestion is that you keep your ARVs conservative and you underestimate the ARV and then you overestimate the repairs. For those of you who don't know, I usually use this formula. It's $25 for lipstick repairs. Okay, so $25 for lipstick. And very few properties are lipstick properties, okay, lipstick fixers. That means all you have to do is put lipstick on them, okay? Very few properties are ones that need only flooring and paint, okay? Very few. Very, very few. But if it is one that only needs flooring and paint, let's say it's a house that was built in 2023 and then they rented out for a year and then the tenants ruined the carpet and then they ruined the walls and they ruined the paint. Well, okay, maybe in that scenario it could be a lipstick fixer. It could be $25 a square foot because everything else is pretty modern, right? But very few properties are going to be lipstick fixers at $25 a square foot. Most of them are going to be regular rehabs at $45 a square foot. Okay, the vast majority are going to be $45 to rehab a home. About 80% of them. Now, if it needs a new roof, tack on $10 for the roof as well. So now you're looking at $55 per square foot if it needs a new roof, and they're going to have to replace the roof on that property. 80% of the time, it's going to be $45 a square foot. Now, rarely it's going to be $75 a square foot. Now, $75 a square foot it's almost a tear down. I mean, this property has been gutted. It's leaning. It's falling. It's been red tagged. Like that's a $75 square foot job. Few properties are going to be $75 a square foot. Okay, very, very few. And so that's another 10%. So 10% are $25 a square foot. 80% are $45 a square foot. 10% are $75 a square foot. Okay, so keep all that in mind. So your repairs have to make sense, and it's always better to err on the side of caution. And when I say err on the side of caution, that means you're always going to want to overestimate a little bit. Now, I'm not saying use $75 all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you have a $1,500 square foot 1,500 square foot property, assume that it's going to be $45. Even if the seller, and you're going to have this comment, okay, even if the seller says to you, well, no, I think we can probably get this fixed for about $30,000. You're going to hear that comment often, okay? You're going to hear agents make this comment often. And here's the deal. Most sellers, not all, but most sellers and most real estate agents are not real estate investors. They're not rehabbers. They're not flippers. The vast majority of them have not done a flip in their whole life. So they don't know what it's really going to cost to rehab a property. And when they give you those numbers, they tend to typically, bring those values down. Typically, okay, sellers do it all the time. They will always tell you that it is going to cost less than what it is really going to cost to fix a property or to rehab a property or to repair the stuff that needs to get repaired in their house. Agents do the exact same thing. And I'm not saying that they're doing this to be deceitful. I'm just saying they're doing this because, number one, they're listening to what their client tells them. So they're just repeating what the client is telling them. And then number two, again, most of them haven't flipped. They don't know what the real numbers are, okay? It's going to be about $45 a square foot typically, $55 if it needs a new roof. So repairs, it doesn't matter what they say. You always estimate your numbers based on those figures. And then the ARV, you tend to err on the side of caution by being a lot more conservative, okay? Then you need the property details. You're going to include all of this stuff, okay? If in some cases, there's some people, we've done a few deals lately for whatever reason, where they're selling the property and then they actually own the vacant lot right next door and they're selling the vacant lot together. So you want to put that in there, the year built, and then you just need some comments. Then what you're going to need is you're obviously going to need some type of comments, okay, some type of sales sheet. You want to sell the idea. Okay, so, but Paul, it's a fixer. What am I really going to sell? The property, it's in bad shape. How am I going to sell this? what's the point of me even coming up with some type of a property description? Well, again, raise your level of professionalism. Okay, so I see a lot of people when they're promoting these opportunities, and all they do is they just give you this, the property details, the asking price, boom, 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 and then they just give you the comps. And I appreciate why somebody would do that. I understand why they're doing that, because really that's all that matters. But what you want to do is, add a little bit of professionalism, come up with some type of a sales description, and you can do that a few different ways. You can do that by, using Google Street Maps, going up and down and around, just so that looking at some satellite imagery so that I can't tell you how many people have sent us deals to help them sell and dispo, and they don't even know if the property has a garage. They don't even know if the property has alley access. They don't even know that there's a liquor store like down the street on the corner. They don't know any of these things because they haven't done like the Google Street Maps view. They haven't looked at it, so it's very difficult for them to sell the property. And later on, we find out that it's because they didn't really do the research, right? They didn't really check out the neighborhood. They didn't check out the details. They didn't realize that that house sits on, just two one-lane streets with no street parking whatsoever. Oh, and by the way, the property doesn't have a garage. So it doesn't have a garage, and there's no street parking because it's on a two-lane, no street parking area, right? That's a huge deterrent for someone that wants to buy a house, or a flipper that's going to buy a house to sell it to an end buyer, for them not to have parking or a garage. Where are they going to park? Or alley access, right? So these are the little details that later on make a huge difference when you're trying to sell them. So you need to nip this in the bud, in the butt. Anyway, you need to nip it by addressing it early on. And the only way to address it early on is look at it from the satellite imagery, look at it from the Google Streets, go around the corner, see what's around the area. Okay, if there's a huge commercial recycling center right across the street from it, then you better believe that's going to affect the resale value. It may not, the comps may still support the price, but what will happen is it's going to affect the sellability of that property. It's going to make it harder to sell. So you're going to need to address that. And let me tell you that when you address that with the seller or with the agent up front, they know that what you're talking about. I almost sounded like Ben Stiller in Dodgeball. You know that I know that we know. Anyway, that's my point. My point is you got to know these things. Okay, you really got to know them, or what's going to happen is you're not going to price it right. Okay, so the best way to get your deal sold is by having this intel. Now, once you have that, just go in there and then start talking. Sell the property, right? That's your job. Give it a little bit of a sales description, okay? And what you can do is you can also borrow from some of the other listings nearby. So for instance, if I'm going to go back to Zillow again. Okay? So I'm going to go back to Zillow. I'm going to go to Cleveland. And I'm going over this because what if you're doing this virtually? Now listen, if you're local and you can go visit these properties yourself, then you should know how to sell that property. If you can go visit it, you know the neighborhood, you know the area, you're familiar with it. You should be a little bit more of an expert in that area. So you should be able to sell it. If you're doing this virtually, say for instance, I needed to sell this property, or I had a property right around the corner from this one that just sold. Well, one of the things that you can do, because you may or may not know, is you can come down here and you can just read the remarks. Okay, what else did it talk about? Did it talk about the neighborhood? Did it talk about the area? This one doesn't have anything because it was a private sale, or you can just look at the active listings. So let's reset this, reset all filters. Boom. So let's say I got an opportunity here. Well, I'm going to come here and I'm going to look at this. And then I want to read the comments. What does it say about the neighborhood? What can I find out about it? Okay, so it's less than 10 minutes from this. I'll borrow that. I'm not going to borrow specifics, right? I'm not going to borrow specifics about the rooms or anything like that because I don't want the specifics about the house. I just need some help selling the area too. Okay. Cleveland's new chapter. All right, well, all it told me was this. Situated in the heart of one of Cleveland's urban revitalization community. I won't use a historic charm. I'll use the fact that it's 10 minutes or less. So if my property happens to be right around the corner from this one, or in this general area, then I can borrow some of those comments. I wouldn't know those things because I'm doing this virtually. Okay, but you have access to the information that gives you these things so that you could come up with some type of a sales description. Okay, another thing that you should be talking about. So if you're working on this, oh, and by the way, I'm not saying you need to create this. In the past, when I was, again, focused strictly on being an agent or strictly on being a broker, I used to have people before AI write up the MLS descriptions for me. There was one person in particular. She would go by the MLS writer. That was her name, and you would pay her $100. I hope her business is still doing. I'm not sure if she's still in business anymore because of AI. But we as agents, and I would refer her people. We would just say, hey, listen, I'd give her the pictures, and she would look at the pictures, and then she'd come up with a sales description, and that's it, right? These days with AI, you don't need to do that. Okay, you can just go in there and you can explain it. But some of the things that you should be talking about, right? It's a two-story home, no garage. You put the details in there. Okay, put the details in there because they're going to find out about them anyway. If it is on only a two-lane street with no street parking, put it in the comments. Okay, trust me, just address it now because it's going to have to be addressed later. If you address it now as opposed to them bringing it up later, it doesn't become an obstacle for you because you're already saying, I know, I told you this, it was in the comments, right? They can't say, well, there's no garage and there's no parking on the street either, so where they're going to supposed to park. I realize that, John or Jane. That's the reason that I put it in the comments because I wanted to make sure that you knew about it from the very beginning, right? So address that. You could say 2 bedrooms on the bottom floor, no formal dining room, upstairs loft. Sometimes there's people that do think they add things to the house. They create additions and they're non-conforming, which is another way of saying non-permitted, right? So it's non-permitted additions to the house. Maybe it was done in a workmanlike manner. Maybe it wasn't done in a workmanlike manner. Whatever. Put all that stuff down. Take it to Gemini or ChatGPT. Tell them to write you a property description. Okay, and they'll do it for you. This is exactly what we did here. Then you're going to need your sales comps. Okay, there's your sales comps. Pick your comps, and then you put it in there. Now you have your sales description. Why is this important? Because later on, when you're going to be going into your Facebook groups, right, and you're going to be sharing your deal, you're going to be sharing your opportunity. You're going to be sharing the equitable interest. You're going to be assigning the contract. Okay, all of those things mean the exact same thing. When you're promoting this opportunity, you're just going to copy and paste your sales description, and then you're going to upload a few photos on there. And I'll tell you that it looks much more professional that way, and it makes it easier to get it sold. Okay. Now, when we talk about Facebook groups, all right, and you're promoting the deal. Make sure that you go into the communities. I see a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just post a deal into the influencers group. So I'm not going to give any names, but I'm just saying that they'll go to a very popular influencer and they'll go into their group and then they'll share their deal. And then later on, a day or two later, they'll go back and then they'll reshare the same posting and then they'll reshare it again. And here's the thing, it's wonderful that these people, and including myself, I'm working on building my community too. I mean, this is me just being fully transparent. We're all looking to build our own community and building our own groups. And it's great that you're sharing it within that community and within that group, okay? And yes, they do have a large audience, and there's nothing wrong with it. But you're probably going to have a lot more success if you focus on the hyper-local groups. So for instance, if I'm trying to sell my deal in Cleveland, Ohio, then I'm going to want to be focused on the groups that are in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, and it doesn't only have to be real estate groups. It doesn't only have to be real estate related groups. Yes, those are important, but you can find other groups in there that you can engage with in conversation and promote the opportunities there too. Okay, so we've covered a couple different ways right now. Number one, the first way that you can promote your property is by finding other people that have purchased similar properties, or they're investors, either flippers or they're buy and hold investors that would be interested in either all cash deals or subject to deals or creative finance deals that they can purchase, okay? And we went over how to do that. Now, the next thing that you do is you create some type of a sales sheet, okay? You're going to work on a sales sheet so that you can get your property sold, so that you have something that you can promote to other people. And then after that, you're going to be promoting it on Facebook groups. That's another way that you can do it. And then now we're going to end with the paid tools. So there are paid tools that you can use. We tend to use Investor Lift. That's one of the big ones that we use. We like using Investor Lift. It is essentially the Zillow for getting, for real estate investors. And so all types of opportunities are sold there. There's cash, fix and flip opportunities. There's seller finance opportunities. There's subject to opportunities. There's holes. Wrap deal, all types of deals are on this property. I mean, excuse me, on this website, and it gets a lot of traffic. Okay, to be able to post deals on here, it's expensive. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna, you know, sugarcoat it. It's a lot of money. Okay, so the ways to get around that is you find someone that does have an account with them, and then you partner up with them so that you can put your opportunities on there, and so that you can get your deal more exposure. That's another way, and that's a paid way to do it. Typically, people, when they JV or create some type of a partnership with someone, they just put it, they whatever the fee is, they'll just slice it right down the middle, and then they share it that way. That's another thing that you can do to get your deal sold and to get it more exposure and to get it more activity. I am going to tell you that this website is not going to get a bad deal sold. Let's debunk that myth, okay? Just because you get something under contract does not mean that the property is going to sell if you do not have it priced properly, right? Which is what we were talking about earlier. Where did my slides go? Oh, wow. Okay, so if the property is not priced properly, it's not going to get sold. It doesn't matter what website you put it on. It doesn't matter how many Facebook groups you put it on. It doesn't matter how many email blasts you do. It doesn't matter how many text message blasts you do. If the property isn't priced properly or structured properly with the right exit strategy, then the deal's not going to get sold, which makes it even more important for everybody to make sure that on the front end, you're analyzing it from every angle so that you know what the best exit strategy is going to be when you do decide to get it under contract, so that you can market the property, create the sales sheet, and then blast it out everywhere. When you put it on Investor Lift, we just copy the sales sheet that we've already created too. So we use the same sales sheet and then we put it into our comments and our remarks anyway. That sales sheet is going to save you a lot of time because you're going to be copying and pasting it in a lot of different areas. Now, the last thing that you can do, and it may not be on here, to be able to get the property sold, let's see, is you're going to put it on the MLS, okay? There are a lot of deals, again, properties that are overpriced. There are plenty of overpriced properties on the MLS. We all know that, okay? So the MLS isn't going to get the deal sold or the opportunity sold any more than Investor Lift's going to get the deal sold or the opportunity sold if it's not priced right or structured with the right exit strategy. This is important, okay? But the other option is putting it on the MLS. Now, typically those are reserved for novations, but they don't necessarily have to be reserved for novations. You can talk to the seller and you can work with the seller and let them know that, hey, listen, even though we've agreed on X price for you, right? And X price for you, that's your net. That's what you're going to get. We're paying the closing costs. We're buying it as is. Even though that's your price, I'd like for you to give me the opportunity to take it to the open market so that I can find my end buyer now. I mean, yesterday. Okay, find them yesterday. And I said this is at the beginning. This conversation goes a little like this. John or Jane, listen, you know that I'm an investor. I've disclosed to you that I'm purchasing the property to flip it. Okay, you know that's what I want to do. Now, if I guarantee you your price, okay, and we can agree on a price that makes sense to you and on a price that makes sense to me, you don't care when I get my buyer, do you? You don't care if I get my buyer 6 months from now, 10 years from now, or even last night. You don't care, right? Great. Well, that being said then, here's what I'd like to do. With your permission, with you as a team, I'd like to put this property on the open market so that I can attract the most buyers possible, so that when I do sell it to that other end buyer, that I find them sooner rather than later. Is that okay? Now, you work with the seller, and there's two ways to do this. The seller can participate in all the paperwork from that point forward, okay? Which means they're going to have to sign a listing agreement. They're going to have to sign disclosures. They're going to sign a whole bunch of paperwork, and some sellers want to do that. Some sellers want to be hands-on, okay? They just want to participate in this. So that means that if they allow you to do this, they also understand that you're going to be looking to hire and fire an agent, but they want to participate in that whole process. Okay, some sellers are cool with it. Again, we are providing a possible solution, not the and it's not the only solution. So some of them may not be okay with that. Okay, some of them may say, straight up say, no, I need you to close first. Okay, well, in that case, then you better have gotten that property at a price that you can 100% perform so that you can do a double close. Okay. Now the other option, and I've seen many professionals do this, is they'll get a limited power of attorney from the seller, and it is limited only to the property, and those limitations are even spelled out where it talks about what they can and can't do, including the hiring and firing of a real estate agent, the seller's, final net dollar amount. They will not get beyond anything below that, and any expense beyond that is entirely the responsibility of the investor, the wholesaler, whatever title you want to give yourself. So that's the other thing that you can do. You can put it on the MLS to get the property sold. The last thing that we're going to talk about is using title representatives. Okay, so find a title representative that is near you. Hop on the internet. So for instance, if I want to go on, we're going to stick to Cleveland today. If I go on to Cleveland and I look up title representatives, here we go, CLE Title Agency. We've got one right here. And I can go to contact. I can give them a call. Hi, my name is Paul. Who is your title representative that seems to handle the most investors within your organization? All right, well, it's Jane Doe. Jane Doe, fantastic. Can I get her number? Now, I'm going to call Jane Doe. Hi, Jane. My name is Paul. I am a real estate investor. I called your office. They said that you deal with a lot of real estate investors. The reason I'm calling is because I am going to start, finding properties. I'm going to start sourcing opportunities. Because you work with a lot of real estate investors, I wanted to see if I could work with you, and anytime I get an opportunity that you think would be of interest to some of the people that you work with, hopefully we can present them together. You would be surprised how many title representatives are in contact with real estate investors, and not only real estate investors, but real estate agents that do work with real estate investors that they can put your opportunities in front of. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make contacts with title representatives. I'm not saying you want to make 100 contacts with 100 different title representatives, but you want to make contact with at least 3 to 5 that you can count on the minute you get an opportunity, that you can call them and say, hey, who do you think would be interested in this that you know of, since you're working with a lot of real estate investors. So don't discount title representatives, because they also know that if you do get a deal, you want them to be the title representative, the title insurance agent for that transaction, because they are in sales as well, and they get a commission off of every transaction that is closed. So if you have an opportunity and you bring it to them, and then they bring it to their investor, or they bring it to their agent, right? Think about it. If a title representative brings an opportunity to an agent, and the agent then brings the buyer, and then the buyer closes the deal, everybody is happy. You're happy because the deal's closed. The title rep is happy because the title rep just got another title insurance order, so they made a commission there. They just built a stronger relationship with the agent. The agent is happy because now the agent made the investor happy, because the agent brought the investor an opportunity. The investor can now fix and flip it. The investor's happy, but then the agent is happy because they could potentially get the deal on the back end as a listing agent. So look at everything that just happened here by doing this and using this type of a strategy. Okay, you found the seller. You created a win-win opportunity so that everybody leaves the negotiating table feeling like, okay, we had to give up a little bit, but at least it wasn't, at least we all came out winning. You've discovered what the maximum allowable offer was going to be. You analyze every possible exit strategy, right? And you selected the best one, and it may be an all-cash offer. It may not be an all-cash offer, but you picked the best one so that everybody walked away from the table feeling like they won. You've got the deal under contract. You go to a title representative and you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Title Representative, who do you know that would be interested in it? They refer you to the agent, and now everybody wins. So it's win, 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 right? All the way from seller to you to title rep to real estate agent to investor. 5 different people involved in this transaction, and everybody felt like they won because you were able to analyze the opportunity and figure out what the best exit strategy was, so that the seller could feel like they're walking away winning, even though they may have to give up a little bit, and you had to give up a little bit too, but you still structured it properly. All right? And so I'm saying that because I say it all the time. There is a need for what we do in this market, whether people want to believe it or not. Okay, there is. Okay, and so that's how you can partner up with title representatives. You can do the exact same thing with hard money lenders. Call up some hard money lenders in the area. All right? Look, I mean, there's plenty. Okay, we call Cleveland hard money lenders. I didn't even spell it right. I spelled it wrong. Hard money lenders, funding in Cleveland, hard money home, whatever. Call the number. Hey, listen. Who's buying? What investor are you using right now that is buying in Cleveland right now? Who's your biggest borrower for flips? Okay, if I have an opportunity, can I bring them to you and you connect us together and we all look like we win? I am happy because I was able to get the seller under contract and they felt like they won and I felt like we won. It's an all cash flip. You will get the loan, hard money lender, Mr. and Mrs. Hard Money Lender. You'll make the investor happy because you're bringing them more money. So you make money on your points. The investor is happy because now they get to use you again for another flip, and then they get an opportunity, and then they sell, right? So everybody wins. And if the hard money lender doesn't refer you directly to the investor, then guess who they can refer you to? Potentially, they can refer you to the agent. And then everybody wins again, right? So it's this domino effect just by you structuring the deal right in the beginning and making sure that you price it right so that you can get it sold. Okay? So I've gone over everything now. I went over pricing it right, structuring it right, your sales sheet, okay? Making sure that it's presented professionally, making sure that you're comping it right. Don't overprice it and don't underestimate repairs. Be conservative with your pricing when it comes to pricing the property. Sorry, I got this weird itch on my nose, and I feel like bewitched. Again, showing my age here. A lot of you guys won't know what Bewitched is, but it was a show during the 70s, and actually it was the 60s, 70s. I don't remember. Anyway, then what you can do is you call the title representatives, you call hard money lenders. You can also find them on Zillow. There's a lot of different ways to get your deal sold, you guys. And so a lot of people in this business, they think that all it is I get it, and then the first thing I'm going to do is run onto Facebook, and I'm just going to start blasting it and posting it everywhere. That is just one of the strategies that we can use. That is also, it's time consuming. Over the weekend, I did that 5-hour virtual bootcamp training, and one of the things that we talked about was hiring virtual assistants to do these tasks for you. And there are people overseas that will do these tasks for you who are very, very educated, and they will gladly work for you. And some of their rates, are going to be as low as $3 or as high as $7 an hour. It just depends on who you hire and what you negotiate. And you can have them doing these things for you. You can have them working on the sales sheets for you. You can have them putting them on the Facebook groups for you. You can have them sending out email blasts for you and SMS blasts. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, you guys. I just wanted to share with you the best strategies to get the deal sold. And hopefully I've given you some out-of-the-box ideas so that now you know that there's more to this business than just posting it on Facebook groups, because there really is. Okay? It's 9:58. I'm going to... Let's see, open it up real quick just for a couple questions, and then I'll let everybody go. I was looking at myself on Instagram, and then it disappeared. That's weird. Oh, there we go. All right, guys. And gals. Sorry, I tend to do that a lot. All right, it is almost 10 o'clock. Thank you for being here. If you need me, shoot me a DM, shoot me a message, shoot me a text if you have my phone number. Everybody, let's get to work. Have a great day. Bye, Bo.